Alright, man, peace. So, brothers, in this entry in the R. Kelly series, we're going to address his origins. That's why I'm calling this video R. Kelly, the Rise of the Pied Piper, aka Orpheus, aka Pan. Because all of those mythological renderings are basically just different perspectives on the same personage. And once again, R. Kelly is metaphorical Orpheus in the modern day music industry. He pretty much is the quote-unquote demigod of music. He's the person who's able to create and craft musical arrangements and sing in melodic tones to the point where he's able to entrance not only listeners, but also his peers. He is extremely gifted. I also believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is an MK asset, also an MK handler, and most likely an MK programmer. When we receive details on how he treated many of the females that were involved in his life. And when I say many, I don't mean most, I just mean certain females. Because that is what people will do when they're intent on enacting a certain spirit that is within them. They're not going to do that to everyone. They're going to do that to a certain class of people. That's why you have men or women who, if you were to speak to certain people who are within their sphere or their life, they'll tell you, oh, that's a great person, or he or she treated me well. But then you have another class of person who dealt with that same person in question, and they'll tell you, oh, no, they were terrible. They were horrific to me. How they treated me. Because the energy of people brings out a corresponding spirit or aspect within a person, especially if that person has an insatiable need or thirst that cannot be quenched in any other way but to express that certain component within them. There are people like that, serial killers, serial rapists, and you know, their fathers who work 8 hours a day, take their kids to school, so on and so forth. Everybody thinks that they're an upstanding person, and come to find out they're doing all types of wickedness that people don't know about. I do believe that R. Kelly has multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, which is very common in the music industry. Because in order for you to rise up to the higher ranks within the entertainment world, you do have to be able to compartmentalize certain things from your childhood, because once you're subjected to satanic ritual abuse or molestation or being the victim of pedophilia or what have you, what that does is that fragments the mind. Once the mind is fragmented in an attempt to protect itself from many of the traumatic events that the subject was subjected to, from there, a skilled programmer, if adroit enough, can install various alters within many of the other personalities that are within that person. And I do believe that R. Kelly encountered certain programmers, especially in his youth, that were pivotal in helping him become the person that he eventually became. Because the R. Kelly story is not just someone who slid out of the womb wicked as hell. He himself was subjected to great wickedness, and he's a product of his environment. And the reason why he fits in so well in the entertainment industry is because he's part and parcel to a culture of sexual and spiritual wickedness within the entertainment industry. He's not the only one. He's just the one who right now is being placed on the funeral pyre because he's playing out a ritual. He is proverbial Orpheus. He has to be subjected to the scrutiny of the Maenads, being who? His female fans, or the female fans of the quote-unquote Bacchus, who is the god of the recording industry. And we're going to go through that step by step. But R. Kelly, he is proverbial Orpheus, and he's going to meet the same demise as Orpheus, presumably. So anyway, let's go through certain aspects of the R. Kelly documentary series here, and let's see what they have to say. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in. It says here, as a kid, I had lots of secrets. Some were terrible, some were beautiful, some were both. One secret was about what was happening to me at home. And I mentioned this in another video. You know, brothers, what's so funny? Nobody has asked the question of where is Tracii Kelly? And if she has passed away, one of you brothers, please correct me. But there's more than one person who has already testified that Tracii Kelly subjected her brothers to pedophilia and incest when they were youths. Nobody jumped in to do anything about it. And it seems that R. Kelly and his brother Kerry Kelly have implied that their sister is not the only person who molested them. The only question in my mind is, was it happenstance that R. Kelly was born into an incestuous family, a family that subjected him to something as depraved and deplorable as that? Or was it part of a program? Who knows? But it just seems very strange, and I'm sure that many people will say that I'm going too far. But when we look at many of the higher level members of the entertainment industry, what they almost all have in common is that they were all molested.
Like anything else when you're a child, whatever you're taught, it goes with you.
I agree with that. What R. Kelly's basically saying is that I know that I'm not well mentally and spiritually, but I'm basically a product of what I was shown. I know that I'm mentally ill, spiritually ill. I need compassion. I need understanding. I need someone with wherewithal who is not just going to try to castigate me. I'm not as evil as you're making me out to be. I'm just trying to place myself in R. Kelly's mind right now. He probably is, or at least a portion of him is as malicious and as evil as he's being made out to be, because once again, they have different personality alters when you're dealing with people who are fractured like this. But we do have to address it from that viewpoint and from that standpoint, and not just say R. Kelly bad, these people good, because that's not the case.
I recently saw the interview that R. Kelly did with Tavis Smiley, which was striking.
Well, first off, I'm sure that you knew about R. Kelly's history. And when I say R. Kelly's history, I'm not just speaking about his sexual history, I'm also speaking about his family history. This person's name is Tracii McGregor. Her official title is Media and Music Executive. I believe that you guys in the music industry do your scouting before you decide that you're going to advance money to an artist. An artist is like an asset. You have to make sure that you know what you're dealing with. So you have an understanding of the effects of what R. Kelly purported he went through and what it would have on his music and on his talent. There are very in-depth psychiatric and psychological research that is done on what the after effects would be if you were to do such and such to a person. That's why I bring up the MK Ultra program so much to a lot of you brothers, because what they're trying to do basically is tap into the potential of the human mind and how it affects performance, whether it be in the sports world or singing or dancing or music or acting, etc. And you'll also have extended control of a person, because not only have you created the alters, but you created the triggers and you have the keys to initiate the triggers that will bring out the alters. Once again, there's no doubt in my mind that R. Kelly is an MK asset and also a handler and maybe a programmer himself. So just to get back to the point, for this person to say that she was so shocked at what R. Kelly said about him being molested as a child, I would have been shocked if R. Kelly said, I mean, just knowing what I know about how this world actually works on the entertainment level, I would have been shocked if he would have said that he was raised in a healthy environment.
At 8 or 9 years of age, you talk in the book about how exposed you were to sex. You saw it. There were adults who should not have been, but were coming on to you, even when you were a child. What did that do to you to be exposed to sex at that early age?
Well, I'm not going to throw any of my people, my family, under a bus.
Yes, you will, brother. You'll throw them under a bus. You wrote a book stating that members of your family hit on you, not only hit on you, but had sex with you. So that's already you throwing them under the bus, unless you're trying to define it as, I'm not going to name names. But you put that information out there on purpose so that you could garner some level of compassion for yourself, which is understandable to a degree. But you are dealing with multiple personality disorder. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
But I feel I owe my fans at least enough for them to have an understanding of what I went through.
Are you sure that you even understand what you went through enough for you to be able to convey it or describe it to your fans? Because the average person out here has no idea how this world actually works and the energies involved in perpetuating the controlling aspects of this world. So I think it's difficult unless R. Kelly thoroughly understands what and why he went through to be able to to communicate that to his fan base.
And yes, I was molested when I was from 7 on to maybe 13, 14, something like that.
So in other words, you were molested from your childhood, or at least The portion of his childhood that he can remember the molestation started was at 7 years old up until he hit puberty. So that shows me that whoever it was who was molesting him, either they were told to stop molesting him at that age, or they had no attraction for him because he started to look more manly, meaning they were more attracted to little boys. Please keep in mind that he calls himself the Pied Piper. That term, the Pied Piper, is a takeoff of the god Pan. Pan played the Pan pipes. He became known in other cultures thousands of years later as the Pied Piper. Pan was also known as a pederast, meaning what? He engaged in lustful trysts with little boys who would run away from home after they were enchanted by listening to the Pan pipes, and Pan would have sex with the little boys. And I've stated this many times, the character of Peter Pan comes from the character of Pan. That's why Peter Pan ran with who? The Lost Boys. So that level of sexual promiscuity and depravity is a part of his programming. That's why he calls himself the Pied Piper. Michael Jackson also was placed under that same type of programming. He was placed under Pan programming. That's why he called his place of residence Neverland Ranch.
By people in my family.
Let me also say this. The character of E.T. represented a personification of Pan, or the god of the woodlands, the god of man-boy love. I'll be delving into that a bit more in depth when I do the video on E.T., or the remake of the video on E.T., The Many Faces of Pan. I did a video which was a cinematic video, meaning with moving images before, but of course YouTube blocked it because they were not going to allow me to utilize moving images of the film E.T. to show what the movie was actually about, which is that E.T. being a manifestation of Elliot's subconscious was brought from the spirit world to the physical world. And E.T. was a god of witchcraft. That's why he came on Halloween. Also, he was out in the woods. He lured the lost boys out to the woods, and he used his witchcraft powers to help them fly. All the boys were witches, including Elliot. But I'll delve into that more later on. The point being is that Pan is an essential character to the entertainment industry, and R.Kelly is a Pan archetype.
I was molested when I was 7 on to maybe 13, 14, or something like that, by people in my family. Sexually, it woke up my hormones a lot earlier than they were supposed to be awakened.
Most people understand or assume that if you come across someone who is super promiscuous, that more likely than not, something happened to them in their childhood to escalate or elevate their level of libido. Many females who are super promiscuous is because they were probably molested as children, as little girls. Many little boys who were molested, they grow up to become what? Super promiscuous, or molesters themselves, or rapists, or pansexuals, or bisexuals, or homosexuals. That's why there are different stages through which a child has to develop before they start to investigate sex. So I say all that, my point in saying all that is that for R.Kelly to have been subjected to that and then rise through the ranks of the music industry like he has, the tip-off to me that I'll get to later is his music teacher, that she was a programmer who was allowed to foment a lot of the talent within him and also encourage him in a subconscious way to push the sexual aspect. But I'll get to that in a moment. Point being is this: R.Kelly is someone who I believe was a seed who was planted and who was watered.
When you're a child, don't really know. You only see and you learn and you try to figure it out. It enhances your curiosity before it's time.
I agree.
You're not supposed to be curious about sex because you're not supposed to see sex right now.
Agreed. And that's not to digress, but that's another reason why in other cultures they don't allow the woman to walk up and down the street dressed like whores and prostitutes like they do in the Western culture.
I believe that Robert, that is
it's possible. I don't think that if he's saying that, I don't think that he's lying, because it happened to me. It happened to me. You know, I really don't talk to people about a lot of things that I've been going through. I just keep it and I hold it. I was molested by a family member, and that shook my world, you know, because I didn't understand it.
Hey, black man, protect your seed, man. You're never ever in life supposed to allow your child to become adulterated or subjected to anything anywhere close to that, because that's going to affect them for their whole life.
I knew it wasn't right, even though I was 6 years old at that time. I knew it wasn't right, but it was happening to me. I was afraid to tell my mom.
That's interesting. The brother says he was afraid to tell his mother. Is it because it was his sister who was doing it? Or was it because he believed that his mother would not believe him? That's why there has to be open dialogue in many of these families, because many of them know that some of their older children have mental issues and they just ignore it and leave it alone. And then the older child will do things to adulterate the younger children, and that's because the parents or the parent was not on point in getting the older child the help that they needed. Now, of course, this was going on here back in the 1970s, probably early 80s. So there was so much less that people knew or were willing to accept. But now, you know, in this day and age, with the sharing of information, we can't tolerate certain things anymore. One of the main things that we can't tolerate is for children to become adulterated like that. The molestation, the pedophilia, that in my view is something that's unforgivable. Unforgivable.
Because of the person and who they were, I didn't know if she was gonna believe me, so I was afraid to tell her. Robert, him being my big brother, I brought that to him and told him what happened to me. And when I told him what happened to me, he didn't really respond to it.
Yeah, because the same thing happened to him.
Like I felt that he should. When I told him, he said, "No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen to you." And I said, "Yes, it did." You know.
That's probably why you're still upset with him to this day, because you felt like he betrayed you back from when you guys were children.
You know, Robert said, "No, I didn't." Then I left it alone. I really knew not to take it to my mom. Then my brothers was the test. If they believed me, then maybe I could have took it to an adult.
I have news for you, bro. Your mother already knew about it. She was just unwilling to pay issuance to it. She turned a blind eye to the whole situation. And I'm sure that certain people might not like that. It just is what it is. It's the truth.
Child sexual abuse confuses power and control with sex. And so children may want to say, like, I want to be the one that's in that power position.
Well, that's normally how it goes, because they want to turn the roles so that they can feel empowered. Once again, brothers, and I say this repeatedly on this channel, protect your seed and keep open lines of communication with your children, whether they be boy or girl, because there's a concerted attempt right now to try to marginalize young boys, especially young black boys, with this claim that people don't care about black girls. I'm not quite sure if there's a faction in America that does not care about the black female, if for no other reason than she's the prime piece on the chessboard that can be used against the so-called black man, who's the real threat. The black woman is not a threat to anybody. So the reason why the mainstream super liberal media is putting out this propaganda about how no one cares about black girls is because they want to inflame the black woman into believing once again that she should continue to side with the liberal Caucasian faction against her own. But at the end of the day, the only solution is going to come from the so-called black man. We have to stop going back and forth in the gender war with the so-called black woman. That's a waste of time, a waste of energy. We have to start making better decisions. And that's basically that. Most of these liberal black females, and the vast majority of them are liberal, are not going to change. It's going to be what it's going to be. But just to get back to the point, the subject of adult females molesting little boys seems to be taboo in this society when it comes to being projected over the media airwaves. They prefer it to be a grown man who was trying to belittle or objectify, quote unquote, objectify females. Well, we have to be astute and aware of this dynamic because it can result in a very fractured and broken adult man. And don't get it twisted, there are just as many female perverts out here as male perverts. So to be forewarned is to be forearmed.
I met Robert at Kenwood High School. We were in the choir together under Dr. Lena McGlynn.
Now, brothers, this cat here, Marc McWilliams, he says that he met R.Kelly in Kenwood High School, and they were both under the authority of the music teacher, Lena McGlynn. That person, Lena McGlynn, is very interesting, and I'll be delving into her a little bit more in depth at the end of this video, most likely. In my view, she's an MK programmer. I know a lot of cats are going to say, dude, what are you talking about? It's okay. In my view, she was an MK programmer for R.Kelly.
One of the crown jewels in Kenwood Academy's, reputation is their concert choir.
And brothers, this joke right here, Jamilah Lemieux, this is another example of how they very strategically place propaganda pieces or spewers of nonsense into many of these documentaries, because the overall intent is to alter the thought paradigm of society. So they'll act as if this is just a quote-unquote expose of R. Kelly, but they'll also use it as a pulpit to encourage quote-unquote black feminism. This person here, Jamilah Lemieux, is the quintessential modern black feminist. First off, her father is a Caucasian man, for those of you who don't know. A Caucasian man who was in the Black Panther Party and then went on to become a police officer after the quote-unquote Black Panthers were disbanded. The Black Panthers, by the way, were a Marxist organization. So that whole thing was FUBAR from the very beginning. But that's a whole other video for another day. The point being is this person, Jamilah Lemieux, you'll probably be seeing a lot more of her. I believe that she's involved with Ebony Magazine, and every time you turn around, she's getting more and more prominent positions in the entertainment industry. And that's because we're in the time period now where you have a lot of bitter, older liberal black females who are given speaking roles by liberal Caucasians so that they can wage a war against the so-called black man and keep him confused and distracted.
Under the direction of Dr. Lena McGlynn.
She was truly like Rob's surrogate mother.
Yeah, I bet. A lot of brothers might not like me saying this, but I believe that she also was doing something with R. Kelly. It would not surprise me at all. Of course, what I'm saying right now is alleged. It's just my perspective. Once again, it's just my perspective, but she has MK programmer written all over her. When you get an understanding of the amount of Hollywood assets that she's handled and prepped for the industry, and then when you trace her origins, she attended Spelman College, which is what they call a quote-unquote liberal arts college, but really is a grove for the teaching and the manicuring of liberal black female witches. And when I say witches, I'm really talking about real witchcraft. I'm not using hyperbole. Okay? Now, Lena McGlynn supposedly is a pastor. And I've stated this in the past. The religious altar is something that they will often use to hide what their actual intentions are, what their actual role is. Spelman College, for those of you brothers who don't know, was founded by John D. Rockefeller's wife. I believe her name was Laura Spelman, hence the name Spelman College. Or at least I should say that she authorized the use of her name, but there were two Caucasian females who actually were the founders of the school, who were both witches and also lesbians, or as they call them, quote unquote, partners at the time. I'm trying to remember what their names were. I believe their names were Sophia Packard and Harriet Giles. I mentioned them in another video. I think it may have been the Martin Luther King video. But most of these institutions all across the United States that are called colleges are just modern day groves. They're witchcraft learning centers. When you graduate from college and you receive your bachelor's degree, the term bachelor has the same origin or etymology as the name Bacchus. Okay, you receive your baccalaureate, your laurel of Bacchus. That's why one of the symbols for achievement in the scholarly field is the ivy leaf across your head. The ivy was the plant of Bacchus. But just to get back to the point, When you look at the emblem for Spelman College, it's basically the upside down triangle and the upright 5-pointed star in there. And their school colors are the jaguar print or the leopard print. And we know that that is representative of the Maenads. The Maenads were the followers of Bacchus. They were the female witches who followed Bacchus, and they were his revelers. They were his fan base, per se. Bacchus was known in Kemet as Osiris or Asar, and his priests also wore the leopard print. So do I believe that Lena McClin is an MK handler and MK programmer? Absolutely I do. Just my perspective, just my opinion on it.
She loved that boy, took him under her wing, and really made him and honed him into being the singer that he is today.
My grandma taught at Kenwood Academy as a music teacher.
So don't nobody think I'm hard, because I'm really very nice.
She was more than just a music teacher to a lot of people. She was a mother to a lot of people, and still is. My grandma's taught so many students, and of the notable students, Mandy Patinkin, the Brat, Jennifer Hudson.
In other words, she's taught all types of witches, because we know about Jennifer Hudson's history and what she was willing to do to maintain her role in the entertainment industry. We know about that. That's a whole other video. We know about the Brat, that being that she's a pansexual, and Mandy Patinkin, that's Caucasian Jew. That means Kabbalah, witchcraft, Baal worship, all that. And that's also what these so-called blacks in the entertainment industry, that's what they utilize as well. They also utilize the Kabbalah, and they worship the bull god, aka Baal, which is just another name for Bacchus. The bull was also a symbol for Bacchus as well.
Shaka Khan, just to name a few.
Very interesting bracelet that this brother has on here. Looks to be some type of horns on, or long fangs on the bracelet. And of course, dressed in all black.
I was impressed and I was amazed. Because
of course you were, because that's Orpheus. R.Kelly is the Orpheus of the music industry. And a lot of cats might be confused about why I make so many connections or correlations between the entertainment industry and the mythological or quote-unquote pagan mythos world. And that's because that's what they adhere to. That's what they believe in that sphere, in that realm, believe it or not. That is what they adhere to. Once again, Orpheus was the master magician. He was the master augur, meaning he was able to tell the future by looking at the flight of birds. He was the master astrologer. He brought witchcraft, aka the Eleusinian mysteries, to the Ionian Peninsula. The Eleusinian mysteries is basically the process through which the people of Kemet worshipped a Set, aka Isis. So as opposed to worshiping a Set in the Ionian Peninsula, they worship Demeter, which just means the mother. You understand? That's what the term Demeter means, the goddess of grain. She's also known as Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. Notice they refer to Lena McClin as the mother of all of these artists, or her students per se. I have very little doubt that there was something going on between her and R.Kelly at that time, because she had to continue his programming.
Because he was musically genius material.
Yes, he was.
Did he ever talk about his home life?
No, he didn't talk about that, but you knew about it because it came out in the music.
That's interesting. So the interviewer asked her, did R. Kelly ever talk about his home life? Meaning what? Molestation, things of that nature. She says, or she claims, no, he didn't. But she says that you knew about it because it came out in the music. So he was 14, 15 years old in high school, and you could tell that he was being molested at home because the type of music that he was making was so quote-unquote vulgar or profane or flagrant that you were able to ascertain that he was getting abused in his household. I have a hard time believing that. I do believe that he told her about certain things that were going on in the household, and I also think that she helped further some of the aspects of his life that dealt with over sexualization by pursuing certain things herself. Once again, a lot of people might not agree with that. It's okay. I'm just going by what I understand and how this industry works.
And what they express, you know. Children express what they fear or they love that's around them, you know. And he was very, very aggressive.
What do you mean by?
Of course, you guys can't see it because we're just looking at a still photo, but she says he was very aggressive, and then she starts to smile and and snicker. She might be reflecting back to to some bumping and grinding back from when he was in high school. Who the hell knows?
What do you mean by aggressive?
Well, aggressive in some of his sexual language too, which we had to discuss and say that it wouldn't be appropriate at school. It wouldn't really be appropriate, period.
That's interesting. So in other words, she's claiming that some of his lyrics were overly sexual in high school. And through that, she chastised him on how he was going to express himself in his music. Okay, so now this brother here is going to make a very astute observation pertaining to the relevance of R. Kelly's term for himself as being the quote-unquote Pied Piper.
Right across the street from Kenwood High School, I would see R. Kelly there on a regular basis, and these were high school girls, freshmen, sophomores. I couldn't tell exactly, but I know they were students at the high school. His nickname is not Pied Piper for nothing. Pied Piper's whole purpose is to bring the young people to him, to follow him. So.
Absolutely, I agree. So I have to ask you a couple of questions. Seeing as you observed a grown man speaking to young girls, one would have to assume that you knew that he was not asking them how well they did on their math exam. One would have to assume that you knew that he was trying to kick game to them. So that means that you do one of three things. You tell R. Kelly to stop speaking to the young girls. You tell the young girls to stop speaking to a grown man. And why are they concerned with something like that at that age? And you also contact the young girl's parents. That's pretty much your job as a police officer. And that's the real question that I have. This notion of R. Kelly hitting on all these young girls, where are their parents at? That's why I always state the same thing. So-called black man, protect your seed. Because at the end of the day, if we don't plan better, especially in who we procreate with and how we raise our children, the only thing that's going to happen is that a bunch of fingers are going to get pointed every which way, every type of direction, and nothing's going to get resolved.
Yeah, to admire him, to listen to him. And so he's good at it.
Absolutely. He's the Pied Piper / Orpheus. Once again, look up the mythos on Orpheus. He was the son of Apollo, the god of music, and he actually could play the instrument of the lyre better than Apollo could. He could sing better than anyone in the realm. He also was the person who, once again, he brought the magical arts of Kemet to the Ionian Peninsula. That's how you know that Orpheus is just another term for Bel or Cush, per se. He was the great mastermind.
The first time I saw R. Kelly, I was probably around 12, maybe 13. We would hang out at the McDonald's in Hyde Park. I was 14 years old. We'd always see him come in by himself, but leave with some student.
Did he ever leave with you? And if not, is that the reason why you're upset? Because he never left with you? You're the co-founder of Hood Feminism. Brothers, let me make this very clear. At no point in any of these videos will I ever state that what R. Kelly did was even moderately okay. But the solution is not to castigate people like R. Kelly. R. Kelly has to be dealt with by the law of the land. The solution is for us to restore the order that needs to be restored by the so-called black man presiding over his house and understanding what the codes are supposed to be. The reason why we can't do that is because we don't know what the code is supposed to be, because a real code applies to everyone. Everyone is supposed to be speaking the same message. When we move in uniformity like that, that's when people can't, sneak through the cracks, and these type of situations cannot transpire. They're going to try to turn it into a lack of respect for women thing, and it's not really about that. It's really about a lack of respect for the laws and the codes that are supposed to be enforced in the so-called black community. This person here is just an angry person. this Jamie Nesbitt Golden, co-founder of Hood Feminism. She has 2 last names, so either she's married to a simp or her mother was, and she just took her mother's name. But at the end of the day, we have to understand something. Feminism is not going to solve anything. Feminism is only going to make things worse because the woman was not created to lead. This person here, Mikki Kendall, another co-founder of Hood Feminism. No disrespect to either one of these sisters, okay? But I tell you brothers this all the time. What feminism is for the most part, from the Me Too movement to whatever, it normally is the revenge of the old or unattractive women. That's really what it is. You very rarely are going to find a very attractive young female who is a hardcore feminist to the point where she'll join an organization to promote her feminism. Almost all these females are feminists in Western society to some degree. But for you to join an organization to proclaim your feminist beliefs, you normally have to be on the older side and or unattractive.
You would see the Ford Explorer pull up. There were a bunch of girls in Kenwood jackets, in high school clothes.
Were you upset because you were not in the vehicle?
You would see him and his group of guys come in and kind of hang out. Mr. Kelly wants to meet you.
Did R.Kelly ever ask to meet you? And if not, is that why you're so upset? Once again, what R.Kelly did is not good, but it's like, come on. Do we really need to see all these bitter-ass females 25 years later upset because R.Kelly did not hit on them when they were a sophomore in high school? Because that's really what it's about. There are no females from Kenwood High School who actually slept with R.Kelly who were in this documentary, or at least admitted to sleeping with him, who were on this documentary. Would it not have been better if they could have found one of those young ladies and they could have said, this is what happened to me. I was 15 years old and R.Kelly slept with me when I was still in high school? Why are we speaking to these 2 females for? What are we trying to get out of this? Other than to promote their feminist organization. That's really all it's about.
And you look over, he does like a little nod. If you're the girl that smiles back, that's when he starts talking to you.
You notice all that while you were eating your french fries by yourself, huh? Ain't that something?
Public announcement, R.Kelly, born into the 90s. He was on the rise. He knew that he had this singing career and he was blowing up, and who wouldn't want to be with a superstar? He liked high school girls. He could influence them more.
Ma'am, let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with R. Kelly's music? How often did you find yourself getting turned on by R. Kelly's music? Are you on this feature just because you're an investigative journalist? Or are you on this feature because you're upset and jealous because you believe that R. Kelly's sexual preference is under your current age?
They were more impressionable. He tries to slide in that space where girls don't know better yet.
Girls are not supposed to know better yet at 14 or 15 years old. This person here, the hood feminist, says that R. Kelly, he tries to slide in at the age where girls don't know better. And I've stated this already. Is the issue or the reason why people are so upset with R. Kelly when it comes to the quote-unquote underage girls, is it because he had sex with them? Or is it the age difference? Because if it was 14 or 15-year-old boys who were sleeping with 14 or 15-year-old girls, the same dynamic would apply, would it not? So it's obvious that the real solution, and the only solution, is that we have to go back to the natural order of things with the man as the head. The only way that we can do that, though, is that the man has to be informed on what type of woman to procreate with. Because if not, the woman is left to lead the household, quote unquote, lead the household. And they really can't lead the children past the age of 4 or 5 years old. People might get upset by that. I really don't care. Once the child hits puberty, they're not listening to the mother. They're going to school and trying to figure things out on their own. And next thing you know, they're prey, or they're privy to sentiments and energies or notions that they're not aware of because they were not properly prepped and they're not being properly protected. So what feminism really is about is desperate and bitter females trying to figure out how they can live life in a constructive, functional way without having a man to commandeer the situation.
They can't necessarily spot a predator.
They're not supposed to be able to spot a predator. That's their father's job.
People will say, well, why didn't anyone notice? The answer is that we all noticed. No one cared because we were black girls.
Brothers, that's really what this is about. Once again, they're trying to use the R.Kelly situation, or at least the hood feminist is trying to use the R.Kelly situation, but not just her, but many other people, because I've heard this sentiment pushed that no one cared about what happened to quote unquote R. Kelly's victims because they were black girls, quote unquote. Notice during the Harvey Weinstein situation, and I did like a 3 or 4 parter on Harvey Weinstein, not once did anybody say nobody cared about what Harvey Weinstein was doing to those females because they were Caucasian women or they were Jewish women or whatever women they were. But for this situation here, the sentiment is nobody cared because it was black girls, even though it's the same dynamic and the same issue. That should tell you what? They have ulterior motives to pushing this R. Kelly storyline. This is to try to provide a bolster for black feminism, for so-called black feminism. Oh, R. Kelly was doing this to us because we're black females, and nobody cared because we're black females. There are very few demographics. Once again, there are very few demographics in America that are attended to more than so-called black women. Multiple millions of dollars are spent every year to make sure that the so-called black woman has housing and support, things of that nature. They assist the black woman in the judicial system. We know for a fact that the police force assists them, the job market assists them. So this red herring that they're trying to use R. Kelly for, or they're trying to use R. Kelly to promote, that nobody cares about black women, that's a total fallacy and it's bullshit. Okay, so now let's hear what this author has to say about the genesis and the reason behind the R. Kelly moniker of the Pied Piper.
All these pop stars pick their titles, right? I'm the Pied Piper of R&B. The Pied Piper was a children's character who played a flute, I believe, and children would follow him down the road to whatever he was leading them.
Absolutely, but once again, that's the watered down version. The Pied Piper was a medieval retelling of the story of Pan, who was a satyr, S-A-T-Y-R, or at least he was the leader of the satyrs. And we know that the term satyr or satyr, it just means to hide, right? That's why Pan dwelt in the woodlands, because he hid. And I'm going to be delving into that notion further on in other videos, particularly in the E.T. video. But the point being is this. It's very important for brothers to understand the importance of the goat. And when I say the importance of the goat, I'm referring to what that creature represents to them. The goat energy is the energy of creativity, of artistic endeavor, of lust. And as I've stated, when I use that term creativity in conjunction with the goat, I'm not just talking about your art or your music. It's also in reference to sex. Because remember, the goat was known for being lustful. And there were actually women who would ritualistically have sex with goats, particularly in the Kemetic city of Mendes or Mendes, M-E-N-D-E-S. That's why one of the terms for the Baphomet to this day is the goat of Mendes. But even when our people went off, we venerated the goat god Azazel. So that entity has always been there. They learned that in Kemet, where he was known as Khnum, K-H-N-U-M, or Benebdejet. Now, the goat god is meant to represent the soul or the being of Asar or Osiris. So it all goes back to the worship of Osiris, who's basically meant to be the Luciferian version of Christ. So that's how they keep his name alive, is through allegory and through mysticism.
So he literally picks a metaphor for seducing young children with music.
Well, that's what you want to do. You want to get the children, because once you get them, then you can seduce them into adhering to certain principles that they're going to teach their children.
How does it feel to be a 14-year-old girl in this world?
So now for those of you brothers who are unable to hear what the interviewer asked this person here, this failed backup singer, Jovante Cunningham, the interviewer asked her, how did it feel to be a 14-year-old girl in this world, talking about in the R. Kelly entourage, serving as a maenad or a worshiper, a very ardent worshiper of R. Kelly. How did it feel?
We went through a lot.
You went through a lot? You mean you went through a lot voluntarily?
We experienced a lot.
I'm sure that you did experience a lot. I'm sure that you did experiment, because this is, that's the energy, unfortunately, of many of these young people. When I say young people, I don't just mean females, I mean males as well, because there's no guidance in the home. So they just go out trying to be a part of everything, and they feel like they want to be a part of the crowd, and then 15 years, 20 years later, they want to cry about it. Things that they were admonished about or warned to not become a part of. At 14 years old, you're not supposed to be hanging out with R. Kelly. I don't care if you think that he's going to help you get a record deal or become a famous singer. That world is purely bacchanalian, meaning what? It's all about revelry, drinking, sex, orgies. That's what it's about.
A lot. We saw a lot. It was a period of time when we were just trying to make it.
Of course, so you were desperate. That's what you guys do in that industry. Then when you don't make it, you become a part of these documentaries and act as if, you did not know what you were getting yourself into. And I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I know that you were 14, 15 years old. That's old enough to be able to understand the consequences of your actions when you're trying to indulge in a world filled with adults. And according to this person here, Jovante Cunningham, she had a father, so her father failed her.
We had big dreams, and we thought we were going to be somebody.
Of course, that's why you're willing to do anything to please R. Kelly.
I often told Robert he should not meet young girls.
Miss McClin, how did you know that R. Kelly was meeting young girls? Was he still coming back to the school to speak to you? Was he engaging in some type of rapport with you? Once again, it's just my view of it. I believe that there was something going on between R. Kelly and this person right here. Just my perspective. That's it. Of course, I don't have any empirical data, don't have any photos, don't have any video. I'm just going by how I understand the process goes, through which many of these celebrities are built up from their childhood. And just looking at some of her background, the understanding that I have is that it's a very high possibility, if not probability, that she's a Luciferian herself, and that she is a programmer, and that she helped foment that sexual altar or that sexual aspect that R. Kelly had. When I look at her history going to Spelman College, a college that was founded by two witches, using the money of one of the top Luciferians of the 19th going into the 20th century, John D. Rockefeller. And then on top of that, her uncle was a man by the name of Thomas Dorsey. For those of you brothers who don't know, Thomas Dorsey was one of the most integral musical artists of the early part of the 20th century. He basically was able to develop the musical genre that we call today gospel music. But before that, he was one of the top bluesmen of the early 20th century. And he was also the Svengali, or the guru of the Missy Elliott of her day, an artist by the name of Ma Rainey, an out of the closet lesbian who had no problem letting people know that she had lesbian orgies. As a matter of fact, there was a huge police raid of one of her orgies back in the day. So, she was way out there. Thomas Dorsey was also a member of the Omega Psi fraternity, which means what? He venerated the dog of death, Anubis, or as he was known in ancient Greece, Cerberus, the quote-unquote the hound of hell. A lot of you brothers may have seen the film Lost Boys. You remember they had the concept of the hound of hell in that film.
And don't give me the book about that you should not meet them. That was my language to him consistently. He has no business around them. They were too young for him.
I agree, they were too young for him, Miss McClin. So what do you think the proper age range for the women he should have been dealing with was? You know who she reminds me of? She reminds me a lot of the character in the film 50 Shades of Grey. The old chick who took Christian Grey's virginity and still has kind of a hold on him. For some of you brothers who may have seen the film 50 Shades of Grey, there was a character there who basically was a sexual programmer for the main protagonist of the film, Christian Grey. And she was an older female. I see that same energy being projected between Lena McClin and R. Kelly. Okay, so now an alleged former employee of R. Kelly is going to lay out the blueprint through which they quote-unquote train or really program many of the quote-unquote sex slaves that abide with R. Kelly.
The house in Atlanta, the main house, is the house where he stays, and the girls live in the house as well.
Yeah, a la the Playboy Mansion or Playboy Bunnies.
Before the girls even become a permanent fixture in the house, he gets a feel of where they are mentally. If the girl seems like she's weak, she don't really have the family support, or no one's gonna come asking questions, or he's even able to manipulate the family, that's the girl he's gonna bring into the house.
Yes, that's old school pimp tactics. Why would he want a chick with a strong family background? That's just competition for power and control. At the end of the day, once again, it all comes back to what we need to do to preside over our family and over our child or over our children. Because when you see situations like this, those are lost children, right? Lost boys, lost girls. And they end up in the hands of the quote-unquote Pied Piper or Pan, who presides over the lost boys. And that's why it did not surprise me when there were stories about R. Kelly having one of the females, I believe her name was Dominique, dress up like a boy. Or according to this other chick, Van Allen, he liked to have a dildo up his backside because he's a pansexual. That's what that industry is about. It's about pansexuality. It's about the bacchanalian orgies, things of that nature. So peace. Okay, so now, brothers, this is going to be the epilogue to the R. Kelly Rise of the Pied Piper video. And this first person that we'll be scrutinizing will be Miss Tracii Kelly, R. Kelly's first MK programmer / handler. Why do I call her that? It's because she's the first person who decided that she was going to utilize satanic ritual abuse on R. Kelly in the form of ritualistic pedophilia, which acted as the main initiation for R. Kelly into the craft and the mechanism through which his mind was fragmented into numerous alters, a phenomenon that we call today multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. But once again, what's so hilarious about Miss Tracii Kelly is that not one person has said, "Where is Tracii Kelly? We have to arrest her. We have to throw her under the jail or under the prison." No one's saying that about her. I wonder why that is. Now, brothers, this is Miss Lena McClin, or Mrs. Lena McClin, because I believe that her maiden name was Lena Johnson. Much was made of her expertise in the musical field in the R. Kelly docuseries. And as I stated throughout the video, the R. Kelly Rise of the Pied Piper video, I stated that in my view, once again, this is just my opinion, my perspective, it would not surprise me at all if Miss Lena McClin is in on the program or in on the programming and is a member of the craft. There were so many hints and various forms of innuendo that were delivered to the viewer to help you understand that R. Kelly and this person may have engaged in some type of quote-unquote sexual relationship. All I'm saying is that I would not put it past the situation. As we can see here, Lena McClin has on the quote-unquote leopard print or jaguar print of an MK Ultra beta programmed asset. I've stated numerous times that many of the quote-unquote Monarch assets are strategically placed in institutions of influence all across the country. And as was stated in that documentary, Miss Lena McClin, or Mrs. Lena McClin, pardon me yet again, was the instructor of Mandy Patinkin, The Brat, Jennifer Hudson, etc. And we know how many of the alumni of her musical program ended up getting down in the industry. Jennifer Hudson sacrificed half of her damn family, allegedly. But once again, as we can see here in this photo, Miss Lena McClin is in the craft. Look at the hand sign that she's doing with her right arm. Once again, look at the blazer that she's wearing with the leopard print / jaguar print to show that she is beta programmed. There's another photo that I found that is a close-up of the previous photo, and in the inset they have R.Kelly there, seemingly implying that yes, they have some type of something going on. And that's very common, especially as some of the younger assets who they have hope for later on in the industry are placed in various institutions. They have to be taken under the wing of certain MK programmers or handlers to make sure that the gifts that are latent within them can bear fruit, can come to fruition, etc. So do I believe that Lena McClin and R.Kelly may have been doing something? I don't doubt it, but that's just me. That's my own personal perspective and opinion based on the circumstantial evidence that was placed in the documentary. So brothers, they also stated that Lena McClin was a graduate of Spelman College, which is a very famous, vast majority black female institution that is renowned for the success of its graduates. Why is that? Because Spelman College is one of the more advanced witch covens that are geared towards so-called black females in America. As we can see here, the emblem for Spelman College is purely Luciferian and meant to convey and denote the fact that the only purpose of this college is to produce as many witches as possible. It's a coven, it's a grove. That's all it is. And we see the upside down triangle representing the quote-unquote divine aspect of the vagina. And we also see the 5-pointed star in the middle, which of course is for Venus, aka the Sirius star or the Sirius star, the dog star for Isis or Aset. And once again, Spelman College was founded by 2 Caucasian lesbian witches. So brothers, these are the 2 females who founded Spelman College. They are both from Connecticut, and Connecticut, as anyone knows, was a major hub of witchcraft all throughout the 16 and 1700s, all the way down through the 1800s. And both of these females were lesbians, even back in the 1800s, a time period where it was considered taboo. They actually stipulated that they wanted to be buried together after they both passed away. And the name Spelman College, once again, comes from the wife of John D. Rockefeller, Laura Spelman, because John D. Rockefeller was the person who bankrolled the formation of Spelman College. Both of these females were agents of Rockefeller business interests. So now, brothers, just as an aside, one of the most famous alumni of Spelman College is Miss Alice Walker. You'll know her as the quote-unquote author of the renowned book, The Color Purple, which is one of the modern liberal black women's favorite books and movies, which basically was a hit piece on so-called black men. Every so-called black man in The Color Purple was incompetent, couldn't ride a horse, they were pedophiles, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, Alice Walker is a Luciferian. That's why the name of her book was The Color Purple. It's talking about the third eye. The color that's associated with the third eye is purple. And the symbol that's used on the cover of her book is the sunflower. Why is that? Because, once again, the sunflower is representative of the god Shiva. That's the same reason why the sunflower was used as an emblem or as a symbol in the film E.T. Also notice that the director of The Color Purple was who? The same director as the director of E.T., that being Steven Spielberg. So, you know, there's always connections when it comes to the Luciferian world of Hollywood. They all basically believe in the same things. Their job is to get the masses to believe in it, and they get them to do so by attacking the mass consciousness of the people from various directions. And as we can see here in the photo, Miss Alice Walker, dressed in all black for Saturn, has her arms across her chest for Asar. She's letting you know that she's a Luciferian. So brothers, this is another photo of Alice Walker. And as you can see on the cover of Miss Magazine, she and Gloria Steinem are looking in each other's general direction in an attempt to imply what? Sapphic love. Gloria Steinem was the guru or the Svengali of Alice Walker. Gloria Steinem, the same person who has direct associations with the CIA. Her job was to push the energy of the Mother Goddess all throughout the 1960s and 70s. And Alice Walker picked up where she left off, and her job was to thoroughly push it on the so-called black woman. But as we can see here on the cover of Miss Magazine, Alice Walker and Gloria Steinem are reconvening. Gloria Steinem has probably debriefed Alice Walker in more ways than one. Now, brothers, this person right here was a person named Thomas Dorsey. For those of you who don't know, he's one of the most influential musicians of the 20th century. He basically created modern gospel music. At first, he was a blues musician, but he saw the potential to branch out to other genres. And of course, he helped to create what we call today modern gospel music. The reason why I bring him up is because he was the uncle of Miss Lena McClin, aka Lena Johnson, and raised her basically from the age of 5. So what are the chances that someone who's as influential as Thomas Dorsey, who also, by the way, happened to be a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity, which means what? He venerated the quote-unquote god of the dead, Anubis, the dog-headed god. And he also happened to raise someone in Lena McClin, who ended up becoming so influential herself at that high school. I believe it's called Kenwood High School over there in Chicago. And she happened to go to Spelman College, which was nothing but a coven for witches. And a lot of sisters who graduate from there, they don't know that. But they also don't understand the spirit that is imbued upon them when they go to a university like that, and they don't know what that university is actually about. I'm not saying don't go to college or don't go to affluent universities, but you have to understand what those universities are about, or the energy from there will permeate through you. But just getting back to this person here, he was also the Svengali, or the guru, of one of the more influential musicians / singers of the early 20th century, a woman by the name of Ma Rainey, who was a pansexual, who leaned more towards lesbianism. She was the Missy Elliott of her day. Now, brothers, this right here was Ma Rainey. And just no disrespect, you can see why the sister went dyke, because damn, whew, good Lord. She damn sure wasn't going to win any beauty contest. But anyway, just getting back to the point. She was extremely influential, and she was also known for having big pansexual orgies, especially lesbian orgies. But sometimes she would also invite the more affluent black homosexuals, and they would all engage in huge pansexual orgies. She even wrote songs about her preference for lesbianism, and this was back in the early 1900s. So there's no new thing under the sun. And Thomas Dorsey was her guru. So he was almost like the Timberland of his day. If she was Missy Elliott, he was Timberland. And he also raised Lena McClin. And you know what's so interesting about that character, Lena McClin, as well? She tried to make R.Kelly, or really she was the influence on R.Kelly, to leave basketball for music, especially after his first girlfriend died in a very strange incident. Do I believe that there was some chicanery or some foul play involving the death of his first quote-unquote girlfriend? Yes, I do. Because early trauma is pivotal for making sure that you can install many of the triggers and the alters within someone who has multiple personality disorder. They need those type of things to anchor them. Okay, so now, brothers, I just want to focus on a certain theme that I find to be very pervasive, especially in the pictorial depictions of R. Kelly's music. You're always going to find the same theme of black, white, and red, but particularly black and red. Why is that? Because R. Kelly is a Saturnian, and the red is meant to signify the element of fire and transformation, and also the understanding of the quote-unquote blood sacrifice. They're all blood-deaded into the industry. They cannot get out. So you're always going to see that same theme of black, white, and red, especially black and red. And we see this with R. Kelly here, trapped in the closet. He's wearing the all black. And of course, the print is in vibrant red. And when R. Kelly says that he's trapped in the closet, I have very little doubt that he's talking about a litany of things, both Luciferianism as well as his pansexuality. Because if you let Lisa Van Allen tell you, R. Kelly likes it as much as he likes to give it. And I don't doubt it, because all of the top artists in the entertainment industry go all ways, not just both ways, but all ways. And that's part and parcel of him being allowed to ascend to the level that he did. Here we see the same theme. Black, white, and red yet again. This is Loveland. This was a particular album that R. Kelly did, and we could see the same theme of black and red, which is for the quote-unquote black mass, or to signify an association with Pan. The black mass is for witches. The witches engage in the black mass and they conjure Pan. And we know that Pan, another term for Pan, is the Pied Piper, because he plays the Pan pipes. Another term for Pan in other forms or manifestations of the quote-unquote esoteric world is Orpheus, because Orpheus is the demigod of music. He was the quote-unquote son of Apollo. But when you have an understanding of the Bacchanalian mysteries or the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system, they're all pretty much talking about the same person or the same 2 or 3 people. Here we see again R. Kelly in the black and white suit. On top it says, "Write me back, R. Kelly," in bold red letters. This is a very common theme that you'll see, especially amongst many of these quote-unquote artists in the industry, which is themselves in the foreground wearing either all black or black and white, and the background will be in a shade of blood red. I'll probably be doing a video about that, or some type of maybe epilogue about that in the near future. But that's extremely common. And once again, that's meant to show that they have been blood-deaded into the industry. They cannot get out. As soon as they're in the industry and they provide the oath to Pan and Bacchus and the Mother Goddess, they can have their lives taken at any moment. They've given up the right to maintain their lives once they're within the industry. And whenever it is the whim of their respective witch coven, i.e. record label, they can be taken out. There's another of the same theme, and this one actually has shades of gray, which is meant to denote what? The difference between the natural world and the quote-unquote astral plane, or the spiritual world, the world of spirits, or the difference between Kansas and Oz, right? Remember, when Dorothy was in Kansas, it was all black and white. When she went to Oz, that's when you saw all the color. Here we see yet again R. Kelly has on the red shirt. The background is jet black. R. Kelly, man. R. Kelly very much knows what this is all about. And as I've stated throughout the series that I've done on R. Kelly, all the videos, I've repeated over and over again that he is an MK handler / programmer himself. Here we see it again. R. Kelly, the king of R&B, buffet. Background this time is in all black, but yet again we see the red theme with his name, and also the burgundy shirt that he has on, and the white. Remember, the color scheme of black, white, and red is for the black mass. It's for witches to conjure Pan. Here was one of his albums, R. I believe that this was the double album. The black and the red background. R. Kelly, Love Letter. Love Letter in all red. Once again, he has on the black and white suit. Who do you think he's singing to? That bright light along the upper right hand portion of this photo is meant to denote some type of camera flash, but actually it's the divine light of the sun god. That's what he's looking up towards. He's singing him a love letter. That's what this is actually about. Once again, R. Kelly, the buffet. Same theme. Black, white, and red. And we see the female here in the all red. She's playing Aset, or Isis, the lady in red. He himself is playing Asar, or Heru. Now, this is contrary to the theme that we've just been going over, but I just wanted to show this photo once again. Yes, R. Kelly is from Chicago, and yes, he is a Bulls fan. But the main reason why he wears that hat with the Bulls emblem on the front of it is because he's trying to convey that he's a venerator of Baal. And brothers, R. Kelly's from Chi-Town. He's not from the West Coast. So why is he throwing up the quote-unquote W? You know why he's throwing up the W? Because he's showing you that he's a worshiper, he's a venerator of the Father God and his Son. When you intertwine the middle finger and the ring finger. The middle finger represents Baal or Saturn. The ring finger represents Apollo. Okay? So when you intertwine the two, he's letting you know, as above, so below. Remember, Saturn is the black sun and Apollo is the god of the actual sun. So you're bringing the two together. You're bringing together the opposites. That's the significance of that W hand symbol. Also remember that the letter W is the 23rd letter in the alphabet. The number 23 represents what? DNA, or the divine intercoiling. It's the same symbol as the caduceus that is utilized by Hermes, right? The intertwining serpents. And also, as we can see, of course, he has on that big ass quote unquote Jesus piece, which is who? It is Tammuz. Yet again, we see R. Kelly here with the golden bull on the front of his hat. You know what's funny, brothers? Not to digress yet again. You want to see a video where there's an MK asset that has on the bull's hat and is meant to be a trigger to signify that he's been activated. Go look at the Chris Brown video for Excuse Me Miss. At the very start of the video, remember he works at the shoe store, but he's late. And then he sees the female walk past, and he walks out, and what does he do before he starts singing? He adjusts his hat, and the sunlight shines down on him, and all of a sudden he gets activated and he starts singing. Chris Brown is an asset as well, but that's a whole other video for another day. This here was one of R. Kelly's main ads. This female's name skips my mind, but as we can see, she was under the programming. Look at the hand sign that she's making, especially towards his face. You see that, brothers? She's doing the goat hand sign, or the bull hand sign, the horned sign, towards his face, to show what? That she understands that he is her handler. She's just a little sex kitten that floats around the industry. Now here's R. Kelly dressed in the all black for Saturn, and he's doing the hand sign, or the pose that we're very well aware of, which is as above, so below. Right finger up in the sky, the quote-unquote finger of Jupiter, and the left hand down. And he's standing on the red carpet, dressed in all black for Saturn. Now, brothers, pay very close attention to how they have the title of this hit R. Kelly song laid out. Notice that the letter X is actually turned upright, but the S and the E in sex are turned on its side. Why is that? Because they want you to concentrate on the X more than they do the other two letters. And notice that the word sex is in bright orange. Why is that? Because they want you to understand that the color scheme is for the god Asar. That's why they have the letter X turned a separate direction from the other two letters. Right? The X is right behind R. Kelly. So they're trying to help you understand that R. Kelly is meant to represent a certain god in the entertainment industry. He's meant to represent Asar or Heru or Pan or what have you. It's all talking about different aspects of the same entity. But as we can see, he's dressed in the all black. He has on the cross for Tammuz, and the me is in bright red. But once again, pay attention to the X. Remember, the X is the symbol for Asar or Osiris. But just to get back to the color scheme aspect, once again, the reason why the X is in orange is because the color orange is for illumination. It's for the sun god. Certain brothers don't understand that Asar or Osiris is also the sun god. He's not just the god of the underworld. Okay? That's why when his son was returned, or when his son came back and he was viewed to be the reincarnation of Asar, Heru, he was the sun god. So those terms are used interchangeably. Heru or Asar, so on and so forth. But anyway, peace.